Something that, you know, like, whenever the first of this update came out, no one talked about the fact that the captain can literally be a captain of 4 ships.
Yeah, I'm kind of confused as to how that's going to be implemented, because they're giving you, like, you can use one captain, right? And you have, like, the skills for each, like, class.
Yeah.
But I don't know if you can move that captain from ship to ship without retraining, unless you're moving it to a premium ship or something like that.
Okay,
if that makes sense.
From what I saw and read, it costs a small amount of credits. They reduced the credits.
I guess for secondary builds, I'll take a look at this. And I guess we'll just start out with 1-point skills to keep it simple. There are a couple of decent ones here. Took away, so it used to be, and you might find this a little, I guess, kind of amusing, but I would always run priority target on almost every ship I played.
I loved using priority target to help me with DDs.
It's amazingly helpful against DDs. It's really helpful for getting information, especially when it comes to identifying how many people are on your flank based off of other people targeting you. And it also gives you some really nice info on who is likely to be shooting on you based off of the number.
They have Consumable Specialists. No, not that one. Emergency Repair Specialists will definitely be one of the main ones I'm going to pick for a battleship. Emergency Repair Specialist for one of the skills.
Reload time of damage control party. I'm looking at it to where it is a minus 3% to the reload time. I'm not entirely sure if that one's so worth it, just in my thinking here with 1 point.
Alarming is kind of useless. You don't really need that for a battleship, so that's like out the window. The Pyrotechnic can be used probably for ships like the Thunderer to get a better HE.
But those are the two that if I would have to pick as my first one, I would go Maintenance Specialists, but there's a little bit of flexibility here. I think there's some good options.
Yeah, if you want to go maybe more tanky, like yeah, because if you're trying to push, you're gonna need the Maintenance Specialist.
So they changed priority target to this thing called Argoside in the second one.
Yeah, we have to. I'm gonna be grabbing that for sure. If I'm doing a pushing ship, usually, it's better to see if there's a DD that like is hiding. See a quick little pop up, and go back down like a little quick little 1, then go back to 0. It's like, oh well, I know that.
Here, I think Argoside is probably one of the top tier picks.
It is.
Gunners for BBs, I mean, 20% or 25%, I'm not entirely sure.
It says 25.
Yeah, so 25% to turret rotation is amazing. And that is like really big on BBs. That's just a straight buff with no downsides. So that's going to make BBs that have pretty poor performing turrets or even good performing turrets a lot scarier.
Threshing isn't going to be useful. It could be if, like, they already have a bad fire chance and you're just trying to do damage. And hey, Kyle. Hey, Wooster. How's it going? We're just going over the BB builds real quick.
I'm looking at the Consumables Expert. Outside of, like, a few niche scenarios, I really don't think it's worth. Vigilance. I mean, Vigilance isn't.
They buffed it a little bit.
Yeah, it got buffed quite a 10% buff isn't that bad. It's just like there's probably better stuff you could be running. So going down to the 3-pointers, you have Armor Piercing Battleship, and this is this is what I feel like is going to be a trap.
It looks like a trap. The secondary armaments for secondary builds. So, plus 20% secondary firing range. So, that one's for secondaries. The Adrenaline Rush, they moved all the way down here to number 3. They buffed it to 25%, 0.25% reload time per percent loss. It was 0.2. No, sorry, it is 0.2, but the enhanced version is 0.25. I forgot the version. Special captains. Survivability expert still 15%, so that's still a must grab for battleships if they want to be tanky. They added the torpedo protection damage reduction, so that's going to be necessary for Germans. Like, yeah, that needs for Germans.
Steady, I have mixed feelings on this. I like the idea of increased torpedo protection for some BBs in certain circumstances. Let's say you're playing competitive, or you're playing against an aircraft carrier, or you're playing a ship that handles really poorly, like a Vermont, or, a GK to some extent.
Mm-hmm.
Problem with it is it's only a 10% damage reduction increase, and if the torpedoes are hitting you not in your basically they're not hitting you in your torpedo protection.
Most of the time they hit you in the bow.
Yep, this doesn't do anything for you, and you're investing a lot of points into it for not too much in terms of a gain. It'll help you against carrier torpedoes, but I don't know if you've gone into that at all. There's a carrier skill that kind of negates this. They've got a skill to counter this skill.
All right.
So, yeah, anyway.
We don't talk about the AA buff. We don't care about that.
Yeah, the AA buff, continuous damage. I'll actually say something on this. The most consistent way you're going to shoot down planes is not really going to be the flak.
It's
going to be the continuous damage whittling down the planes over time.
So if it has 400 base damage for it, and you do this one, it goes up to 500.
I just don't think it's really worth it. Like, investing that many points into a system that really is not going to see a lot of benefit most of the time. It really is on the onus of the carrier to screw up for you to really get to see any benefits out of that, and I don't think that's something you can usually rely on.
Mm-hmm. The marksman one, I don't really get that one, unless you're using spotter plane.
Well, the marksman one is if they're not within your ship's base detectability radius. Mm-hmm. I'm assuming by base detectability they mean without any modules or upgrades.
Yeah.
So, in this sense, depending on the ship, I would say if you're not running a conventional build, that marksman effect might actually be extremely powerful for long range, oriented ships.
As far as I know, this pretty much means that both sides will be firing, but if you have a target locked in, that one gets the buff. Is how this works. I've been looking into this one because they're making it where both sides will fire. But so what this is just meaning that if you have the priority target locked manually, you will get the 35% buff. If it's not locked in, you will not get the buff. They also did a recent patch to the secondaries, so they gave them another buff by 20 something, 25% I think. They gave them a recent patch. They buffed the secondaries for the Germans. They made them more accurate. So the Germans got their own secondary accuracy buff in a recent patch.
Yeah, I think this will actually be pretty nice. All right, so then we move on to Armament Reload Expert.
Yep. This is really good for secondary build ships.
Yeah, my dilemma with this is with secondaries.
If it's German, it's 12.6 though for tier 10.
Yeah, actually, because they're buffing the ranges on secondaries.
Yep, 12.6 for tier 10 and 12 for tier 9.
Yeah, if you're running a secondary build, this would be pretty good. My only concern is just the point cost overall. This emergency repair expert skill that's cost 4 points.
Yep, that's a really good one too.
It is really good, but here's the thing that I noticed kind of looking through this. You know how you had superintendent that increased the number of consumables you had by 1 across the board? This seems to me like a more focused superintendent, where you only get the repair party. You don't get like an extra hydro. You don't get an extra spotter plane or something like that.
Yep.
And you get a little bit of extra healing. But because you make them, expend an extra point in order to take this, I think this is still like an overall nerf to that skill. All right, Concealment Expert is another no-brainer. I mean, if I had to pick for like a tank build, I would say Emergency Repair Expert, Concealment Expert, and Fire Prevention Expert. They really made these wordy. Emergency Repair, Concealment, and Fire Prevention. Those three are like the golden like trio.
But I feel like the Concealment Expert isn't needed for all the battleships though. Like if you're sitting really far back sniping, you don't really need Concealment Expert, I think. And
That's
then
pretty much
you
the
have
BBs.
Fire Prevention, which we all know.
Yeah, Fire Prevention is amazing. Like anytime you bless you.
Oh, thank you.
Anytime you run Fire Prevention and you're going up against kind of like a heavy HE ship, a lot of people think the main benefit of Fire Prevention is that minus 10% risk of causing fire.
No, it's the number of fires.
It is that maximum number of fires, and specifically where the fire point reductions are.
Yeah, because everyone always aims for the center mass of the vessel, where the two fire points are at.
Yeah, a lot of people, I think, are generally familiar with this, but for the people that aren't familiar with it, there are 4 fire positions on every ship, and there's one at the bow, there's one at the stern, and there are 2 that are in the central part of the ship, usually around the superstructure. Fire Prevention takes the 2 that are in the center that are usually where the superstructure is, and just takes away one of those 2 fire positions and just makes it one big fire position. That way you don't run the risk of getting set on fire twice. So it effectively cuts the damage of a double fire in half, and just eliminates like the risk of even having one most of the time. So
exactly,
that's the most commonly aimed point whenever anybody's shooting at a ship, because it's the easiest to hit. Because it's
the least moving,
very high superstructure. And compared to the other two fire positions on the ship that are at the
bow, those are harder to hit.
On the bow and stern, they're not only harder to hit, but you're not going to deal HE damage to them usually. So you really want to have Fire Prevention to cut down the risk of just getting that double fire.